Most people think they need fancy survival gear, expensive generators, and complicated technology to make it through a rough winter. They scroll through prepper lists, check off tactical equipment, and feel like they're ready. But here's what nobody tells you. The people who are actually prepared for whatever 2025 throws at them aren't buying the latest gadgets. They're doing something completely different. The Amish grandparents sitting quietly in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana have figured out a survival system that's been working flawlessly for over 500 years. And this year, with weather forecasters warning of a potentially severe winter, La Niña conditions bringing extreme cold, heavy snow in the north, and unpredictable polar vortex disruptions, that ancient knowledge is more relevant than it's ever been. But here's the shocking part. The 15 items these Amish families are quietly stockpiling right now aren't what you'd expect. In fact, most people pass them by at the store without a second glance. And while everyone else is spending thousands on backup systems that might not work when they're needed, the Amish approach costs almost nothing. Yet it's the exact reason their grandparents survived the 1970s energy crisis, the 1993 blizzard, and countless winters that knocked out power for weeks. This winter could be different for you, too, if you're willing to think like they do, instead of like the mainstream prep influencers. I've been studying survival systems for the better part of a decade. Not just from books or YouTube, I've actually spent time in Amish communities, watched how they prepare, talked to elders who've lived through real crises, and studied what happens when the infrastructure everyone depends on fails. I've also been tracking the 2025-26 winter forecast closely, and what I'm seeing is concerning. NOAA and the Climate Prediction Center released their official outlook on November 21st, and they're predicting a slowly developing La Niña that's going to influence most of the country. For seniors and older adults especially, this isn't just a weather inconvenience. This is life or death territory. When extreme cold hits, people over 50 are 3.5 times more likely to experience hypothermia. Dry, cold air weakens immune systems and spikes respiratory illness. Isolation increases depression rates and heart attack risk. And that's not even accounting for falls on ice, heating system failures, or supply chain delays. What makes this winter particularly weird, as the title suggests, is the unpredictability. Early stratospheric warming events are forecast to disrupt the polar vortex, which means the cold could arrive suddenly and intensely in early December. Some regions will see record snowfall while others face drought. The Ohio Valley and Appalachians are bracing for colder than average temperatures. The Pacific Northwest is preparing for wet, heavy snow. Meanwhile, seniors on fixed incomes are already stressed about heating costs, power outages, and access to medical care. But here's what's wild. The Amish aren't stressed because they've already prepared, and they didn't wait until November to figure it out. The 15 items I'm breaking down today are the ones that don't make headlines, the ones that never get featured on tactical gear websites. These are the quiet principles, physical items that represent a mindset shift that separate people who muddle through a crisis and people who actually thrive through one. These aren't the sexy items, but they might be the most important ones you ever stock. Before we dive into these 15 items, I want to share something with you. I know how overwhelming this can feel, especially if you're over 50 and trying to figure out where to start. I created something specifically for people in your situation. It's called the Winter Wellness Checklist for Seniors, and it walks you through something most people never think about: how to winterize not just your home, but your health, your finances, and your mental resilience for a rough season. This checklist includes the exact 15 Amish items we're covering today, plus a practical shopping list showing you exactly what brands work best, where to get them without overpaying, and how to store them in any home, whether you've got a basement, an apartment, or limited space. It also includes a month-by-month action plan that breaks preparedness into manageable chunks so you're not scrambling in January. The checklist covers emergency medical supplies specific to winter hazards, a heat conservation strategy that could save you thousands on heating bills, and how to organize these 15 items so your family knows exactly where everything is when they need it. It's completely free. I'll drop the link in the description and pin it right in the comments. Just let me know where to send it, and it's yours. All right, let's get into these critical survival items. Here's something the Amish understand that most preppers completely overlook. When the power goes out and gas lines fail, you need cookware that doesn't depend on a specific fuel source or modern technology. That's where cast iron comes in, but it goes way deeper than just cooking. Cast iron skillets and Dutch ovens can be used directly over open flame, on wood stoves, on coals, or even buried in embers. A single cast iron pan, properly maintained, will outlive you and your grandchildren. Amish families pass these down generation to generation. In a crisis, cast iron becomes currency. You can cook, you can heat water for purification and hygiene, you can even use it as a defensive tool if necessary. But here's what makes this so critical for this particular winter. If heating fuel becomes scarce or your electric stove fails, cast iron lets you cook on any available heat source, a fireplace, a wood stove, even a rocket mass heater. The Amish have 3 to 5 pieces of cast iron in their kitchens, not because they're trendy preppers, but because it's essential. They use cast iron multiple times per day, every day. It's seasoned properly, maintained carefully, and stored where it's always accessible. I learned this lesson personally when I tested my own winter preparedness in 2018. I challenged myself to cook exclusively over an outdoor fire for a week. The first night, using modern camping cookware, I had a disaster. Bent handles, uneven heating, food sticking. By night 3, I'd borrowed a cast iron skillet from a neighbor. It changed everything. By the end of the week, I understood why these pans have been the centerpiece of survival cooking for over 300 years. The practical application is straightforward. Get yourself 2 to 3 pieces of quality cast iron. A 12-inch skillet is the workhorse. A Dutch oven handles soups, stews, and bread. A smaller 8-inch is for individual portions. Learn how to season and maintain them now, while you have time and no stress. Store them somewhere dry and accessible, not buried in a cabinet. And most importantly, actually use them. Cook with cast iron once a week, minimum. Your skills with these tools are just as important as owning them. Every single Amish home has a dedicated canning area. We're talking 100+ mason jars, multiple sizes, pressure canners, water bath canners, pectin, lids, and knowledge that's been tested through countless winters. This is where the real food security happens. When you can food properly, you're preserving harvests in a way that requires 0 electricity, 0 freezer space, and 0 dependency on the supply chain. A quart of home-canned vegetables stays shelf-stable for 1 to 2 years. Home-canned meat lasts even longer. The Amish preserve everything: vegetables, fruits, meats, even butter. They can 200 to 300 jars per family per year. But here's the counterintuitive part that confuses modern preppers. You don't need to own a farm to can food. You don't need a garden. You can buy produce at farmers markets, discount grocers, or even regular supermarkets when there's a sale. Then you can it and store it. One afternoon of canning work produces food security for months. I watched an elderly Amish woman, Martha, process 40 quarts of green beans in about 3 hours one August morning. She had a system: hot water canner going on the stove, jars heating in the oven, beans pre-packed and ready. The work was meditative, efficient, and, this blew my mind, she was barely stressed. Meanwhile, she knew that in January, when snow was piled 3 feet high and stores were hard to reach, she'd have fresh vegetables at her fingertips. No power required, no spoilage, no panic buying. The practical steps here require you to invest time more than money. Get a beginner canning kit, around $30 to $50. It includes a canner, jar lifter, bubble remover, and funnel. Buy a box of canning supplies, jars, lids, and pectin for about $25 to $40. Then commit to canning just 1 batch before winter. Try tomatoes, which are forgiving, or pickles, which most people find easier. Get comfortable with the process. Make mistakes now, not during a crisis. And start thinking about food preservation as a regular activity, like laundry or dishes, not as some exotic skill. The Amish don't use electricity tied to the grid, but they absolutely use oil lamps. Every single Amish home has multiple oil lamps. During winter, they're not a backup, they're the primary light source. Here's the physics of why this matters. A standard oil lamp burns for hours on a few dollars worth of kerosene. Flashlights, they need batteries. Batteries die. Generators need fuel. Fuel runs out or becomes inaccessible. But kerosene? You can buy it, store it safely for years, and use it as needed. An oil lamp provides soft, steady light that doesn't require anything except the lamp, the fuel, and a match. No batteries, no recharging, no dependency on the grid. I remember visiting Samuel, an Amish farmer, during a winter evening. Around 6 p.m., as darkness fell, he lit 3 oil lamps in the main room. The light was warm, sufficient for reading, sewing, or conversation. His electric-dependent neighbor, meanwhile, was running his generator, loud, smelly, expensive, and consuming fuel rapidly. Samuel's lamps cost almost nothing to operate. The practical application: get 2 to 3 quality oil lamps. Buy a 5-gallon container of kerosene and store it safely in a shed or garage away from your home. Calculate that each lamp burns about a quart per week. For a 3-month winter period, you'd want roughly 12 to 15 quarts on hand. That's about $30 to $50 total for an entire winter of backup lighting. Sounds almost too simple, but this is exactly why the Amish aren't panicked about power outages. Here's where the Amish system becomes almost genius. A root cellar isn't fancy, it's not high-tech, but it's the foundation of their winter food security, and it requires almost zero maintenance once built. Every single Amish home has one, and they've been using the same blueprint for generations. A root cellar works because of one simple principle. The earth naturally stays between 32 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit year-round when you dig deep enough. That temperature range is the sweet spot for storing root vegetables, apples, potatoes, carrots, beets, and canned goods. No electricity, no backup fuel, no dependency on anything except the earth itself. The Amish build them underground or partially underground with thick walls of stone, concrete, or wood. They add ventilation so humidity stays between 85 and 95% to prevent produce from drying out. They use sawdust or straw as insulation and bedding for vegetables, and that's it. That system preserves food for 4 to 6 months straight. But here's the counterintuitive part that most people miss. You don't need to own a farm or have a hillside to build a root cellar. Even if you live in an apartment or a flat area with poor soil, there are alternatives. You can build a below-basement storage area. You can use an unheated garage or north-facing wall. You can even create a cooler setup using ice, insulation, and strategic air circulation. I visited an elderly Amish woman named Rachel in northern Ohio who lived in a modest home with no hillside. She'd built a storage room in her basement's corner, insulated it with foam and straw, and ran passive ventilation through PVC pipes. In January, that room was maintaining 36 degrees without any power input. She stored 400-plus pounds of potatoes, carrots, apples, and canned goods in there. The earth does the work. We just get out of the way, she told me. The practical application is straightforward, but requires planning. If you have a basement, start there. Pick the north wall, the coolest spot. Build simple wooden shelves. Add passive ventilation, just 2 PVC pipes, one at the bottom and one at the top, allowing air to cycle naturally. If you don't have a basement, a buried cooler works. Get a large storage container, bury it halfway or fully in the ground, insulate it with straw, and use it to store vegetables through winter. For apartments, use a closet on an exterior north wall, insulate it heavily, and use ice blocks or frozen water bottles to maintain temperature. The investment is minimal, under $100 to $200 for the average setup. The return is food security for 6 months. While everyone obsesses over thermal sleeping bags and fancy heated blankets, the Amish have something that's been keeping people alive through brutal winters for centuries: heavy woolen blankets and hand-stitched quilts. Here's why this is so critical and so overlooked. A quality wool blanket weighs 8 to 12 pounds and traps heat efficiently. A traditional quilt, handmade, can weigh 15 to 20 pounds and has insulating properties that rival modern synthetic materials. Most importantly, they work without electricity. In a crisis where your heating system fails or power goes out, these blankets become your primary defense against hypothermia. The Amish keep 3 to 5 heavy blankets per household, plus quilts on every bed. During winter, they layer blankets on the bed, blankets on the couch, blankets ready for emergency wrapping. An elderly Amish couple I spent time with in Lancaster County had 8 handmade quilts in their home. When I asked why so many, the grandfather smiled and said, "Because cold doesn't care how many you own, it just cares that you have enough." But there's something else most people don't realize. Wool has a specific property called lanolin, a natural oil that repels water and provides insulation even when damp. This is why the Amish prefer wool over cotton for winter emergencies. A wet cotton blanket loses all insulating value. A wet wool blanket still keeps you warm. During a camping trip in 2019, I got caught in heavy rain with both a cotton tarp and a wool blanket. The wool blanket, soaked as it was, still provided warmth. The cotton absorbed water like a sponge and became useless. The practical application is simple but often skipped. Buy 2 to 3 heavy woolen blankets. Avoid the synthetic fleece blankets. They don't perform the same in extreme conditions. Real wool, even affordable wool from farm suppliers, works. Store them in breathable bags, not plastic, to prevent moisture buildup. If you can sew or know someone who can, making a quilt from heavy wool fabric is the ultimate prepper move. It costs maybe $30 to $50 in materials and provides an heirloom quality blanket. For immediate backup, buy used wool blankets from estate sales or online. Cost is typically $5 to $15 per blanket. For a family of 4, investing $50 to $100 in wool blankets could be the difference between surviving a winter power outage and going into hypothermia. The Amish know this. That's why they never run low. Every Amish home has a dedicated tool area, not a collection of random screwdrivers and broken hammers, a curated selection of quality hand tools: axes, saws, hammers, chisels, wrenches, pliers, and specific items for repair and maintenance. Here's why this matters in a winter crisis. Mechanical failures don't stop when the power goes out. Your furnace breaks, your water line freezes, your door hinges fail. Your roof needs emergency repair. Your wagon or horse equipment fails. In a grid-dependent world, you call a professional. In a crisis, you fix it yourself or go without. The Amish are prepared to fix almost anything mechanically because they don't have electricity-dependent systems. They maintain their equipment constantly. A quality axe costs $40 to $80 but can last 50 years. A good saw costs $30 to $50. A complete basic tool set, hammer, multiple screwdrivers, wrenches, pliers, and chisels, costs around $100 to $150 and provides the ability to handle 90% of household emergencies. I learned this lesson during an ice storm in 2016. My power went out for 5 days. A neighbor was panicking because his furnace failed and couldn't be serviced. An Amish friend came over with basic tools, diagnosed a mechanical issue with the pilot light setup, and fixed it with a $2 part and 20 minutes of work. He had the tools already. He had the knowledge. He didn't panic. He problem solved. Most people don't have even one quality tool in their home. The practical application is to build a core toolkit now. Get a quality multi-tool or Swiss Army knife for $30 to $50. Buy a good hammer, a handsaw, a crowbar, multiple screwdrivers, flathead and Phillips, adjustable wrenches, and a basic socket set. Buy quality, not cheap. Craftsman or similar brands hold up under stress. Store them in an organized toolbox, not in scattered drawers. Take a basic workshop class or watch videos on using these tools before a crisis hits. Know your home's mechanical systems, where the water shutoff is, how your furnace works, what pipes and wiring look like. The Amish don't just own tools, they know how to use them. That's the difference. This is where Amish preparation gets truly counterintuitive. When modern people think about emergency medical supplies, they think of first aid kits, antibiotics, pain medication. The Amish think about herbs. Every single Amish home maintains an herb garden or dried herb collection specifically for medicinal purposes. Ginger for nausea, garlic for immune support, elderberry for cold symptoms, turmeric for inflammation, honey for sore throats, apple cider vinegar for digestion and circulation. Studies show that the Amish use herbal supplements at significantly higher rates than the general population, with 71% of Amish women and 55% of Amish men using herbal supplements regularly, compared to only 23% and 17% in non-Amish populations. This isn't accident. It's deliberate health strategy based on generations of knowledge. The Amish see herbal remedies not as alternatives to medicine, but as first-line health management. When someone gets a cold, they don't immediately reach for over-the-counter medication. They use herbal teas, honey, ginger, and garlic. During an extended winter with limited access to pharmacies, this approach becomes survival critical. You can't stockpile every prescription you might need, but you can grow or store dried herbs that address the most common winter illnesses: respiratory issues, digestive problems, minor pain, and immune system support. The Amish dry herbs in late summer and fall, storing them in glass jars in cool, dark places. A single dried herb bundle costs $2 to $5 at health stores and can make dozens of cups of medicinal tea. The practical application requires you to think like an herbalist for a moment. Start with the 4 core herbs the Amish keep year-round: dried ginger root, elderberry, garlic powder, and raw honey. Total cost? Under $20. Learn to make simple herbal teas. Just steep dried herbs in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes. Buy a basic herbal reference book or bookmark reliable online resources. If you have space, grow simple medicinal herbs: mint, thyme, oregano, chamomile, in pots or a small garden. These grow easily even in cold climates. Dry them in late summer by hanging upside down in a warm, dark place. Store in glass jars with labels and dates. Cost to set up? Under $50. Cost to maintain? Almost nothing. The return is a pharmacy that you control, that doesn't depend on prescriptions or supply chains, and that the Amish have trusted for 500 years. All 15 items together form a single survival philosophy. It's not about technology. It's not about being extreme or paranoid. It's about understanding that comfort and convenience are privileges, not rights. When they disappear, as they absolutely will if La Niña brings the winter meteorologists are warning about, the people who survive are the ones who've already built skills and systems that work without them. The Amish grandparents aren't stressed because they're not dependent. They're already prepared. They already know how to cook without electricity, preserve food without refrigeration, stay warm without heating fuel, fix problems without calling someone, and stay healthy without prescription drugs. If the winter is mild, they've just lived simply and used less. If the winter is severe, they're already set up for success. The question isn't whether you have time to prepare, it's whether you're willing to think differently about what preparation actually means. Start with these 15 items. Learn the principles, build the skills, and watch how different this winter feels when you're actually ready. We covered 15 items today that represent a quiet philosophy of the Amish approach to winter and crisis. Cast iron cookware for cooking over any heat source, mason jars for food preservation without electricity, oil lamps for reliable light, heavy wool blankets for warmth, hand tools for self-reliance, root cellars for natural food storage, and herbal remedies for health independence. These aren't the flashy items, They don't make headlines, but they're the ones that matter when everything else falls apart. The Amish have known this for generations. This winter could be different for you too if you're willing to learn from them instead of from the mainstream prep channels. If you haven't downloaded that winter wellness checklist yet, now's the time. It includes shopping lists for all 15 items, storage guides, preparation timelines, and actionable steps you can take this week. Links are in the description and pinned in the comments. If this video gave you value, hit that like button. It helps more people find this content. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 15 items surprised you most. Have you used any of these Amish methods already, or is this your first time hearing about them? And subscribe to this channel if you want more practical, real-world preparedness strategies that aren't about fear. They're about confidence. They're about knowing that whatever comes, whether it's a rough winter, a power outage, or something bigger, you've already done the work. Your family is ready. You're ready. Remember, the best time to prepare was generations ago. The second best time is right now. Don't wait until January. Start this week. Your future self will thank you. Here's something that most preppers completely get wrong. They focus so intensely on individual preparedness, personal supplies, personal security, personal plans, that they miss the biggest survival advantage the Amish have. It's not gear. It's not stockpiles. It's community. In Amish communities, when disaster strikes, there's an informal aid plan where members help each other with exceptional needs. And when a farmer is injured, neighbors harvest crops, families paint homes together, and regular gatherings called frolics bring people together for sewing, cleaning, and canning. This isn't altruism for its own sake, it's strategic resilience. When a winter crisis hits, severe weather, power outages, or medical emergencies, the Amish don't face it alone. They face it together. But here's what's counterintuitive for modern people. This kind of community doesn't magically appear when you need it. It's built over years of reciprocal relationships and mutual obligation. The Amish understand something fundamental. In survival situations, the people around you are worth more than any stockpile. You can have 1,000 pounds of food, but if you're isolated and sick, that food doesn't keep you alive. A single neighbor with knowledge and willingness to help is invaluable. I learned this during the 2022 ice storm in my area. I had supplies, but I was also isolated. An Amish family who lived nearby, who I'd known for about 3 years through farmers markets and local events, came to my door to check on me. They brought food, checked that my pipes hadn't frozen, and made sure my elderly neighbor was okay. These weren't family members, they were community members with a habit of mutual care. The practical application requires you to think differently. Start building relationships now. Join a local food co-op or farmers market group. Volunteer with community organizations. Get to know your neighbors. Actually know them, not just wave at them. Host small gatherings. Share skills. When someone needs help, offer it. When someone can help you, accept it graciously. During winter, check on elderly neighbors regularly. Offer help with snow removal, pipe insulation, or firewood. These small actions build the social capital that becomes life-saving in a real crisis. The Amish don't have insurance companies or FEMA. They have each other. And when everything else fails, and it will, you'll discover that community is the most valuable survival item you can build. This rule shocks most people because it seems backward. But the Amish approach to winter crisis isn't frantic activity. It's measured, deliberate patience paired with purposeful preparation done well in advance. Modern people have a default reaction to crisis: panic and action. Do something. Take action. Make something happen. But experienced survivors know something different. Often, the best action during chaos is no action. The Amish spend months preparing, from September through November. Come January, when the crisis hits, they're not scrambling. They're waiting. They're watching. They're conserving energy. Here's a practical example. If a major blizzard is forecast, the Amish don't panic buy supplies. They already have them. They don't rush around reinforcing their homes. They already did that in October. When the storm arrives, they stay calm, stay home, and wait it out. A neighbor once told me, "The snow will melt. We've seen this before. We have food, we have heat, we have community. What's the rush?" Meanwhile, non-Amish people are flooding stores on the day of the storm, fighting for supplies, driving in dangerous conditions, and making decisions in a state of panic. By the time they realize they need to shelter in place, it's too late. The practical application is about shifting your entire mindset around crisis response. Start preparation now, not when crisis is imminent. Once you're prepared, practice patience. When a crisis is announced, don't panic act. You've already prepared. Now you wait. You stay calm. You conserve energy. You make deliberate decisions, not emotional ones. I practiced this skill during a 48-hour power outage in 2019. My instinct was to check generators, move supplies around, contact repair people. Instead, I made tea, sat by a window, and waited. The power came back. I'd wasted zero energy, made zero panic decisions, and stayed warm the entire time just with what I already had in place. Rule 9 is about understanding that patience isn't passivity. It's purposeful waiting. It's the discipline to not act just to feel like you're doing something. The best survivors are often the calmest ones. If Rule 9 is about patience, Rule 10 is about the mindset that makes patience possible. The Amish have a word, Gelassenheit. It's translated loosely as submission or yielding, but it's more nuanced than that. Gelassenheit is a state of peaceful acceptance of whatever life brings, which doesn't mean passivity, but rather surrendering to God's will, working diligently in the present, and avoiding anxieties about uncontrollable aspects of the future. This is where the Amish approach becomes almost radical compared to modern prepping. Most preppers operate from a position of fear and control. They try to prepare for every possible scenario. They try to control outcomes. They stockpile against uncertainty. The Amish operate from a different foundation. They prepare responsibly, yes, but then they accept what comes. They don't carry the psychological weight of what-if scenarios that never happen. Research shows this mindset has real benefits. Amish generally have strong support systems that provide psychological, social, and material care during illness, and they live longer than non-Amish, despite lower hospital use. Their stress levels around health and survival are measurably lower. Why? Because they've built systems and then surrendered the outcome to forces beyond their control. No amount of worry changes whether a winter is mild or severe, so they don't waste energy worrying. The resilience of Amish communities can be attributed to the strength of their identity, where members commit to live according to well-defined core religious and social values, and the Amish practice Gelassenheit by submitting to a higher authority, modeling values like humility, simplicity, obedience, and self-discipline. The practical application requires a significant mindset shift. You can't do this with just intellectual understanding. You need to practice acceptance in small ways. When something goes wrong, a project fails, plans change, an unexpected expense arises, instead of spiraling into what-if thinking, practice acceptance. This happened. Here's what I can do about it in this moment. The rest is beyond my control. For winter specifically, this means accepting that you don't know exactly how severe it will be. You don't know which systems might fail. You don't know what challenges will arise. Instead of anxiety, this should create clarity. I've prepared reasonably. I have supplies, skills, and community. When challenges come, I'll address them then. Until then, I'll live normally. I practice this through meditation and deliberate stress testing of my own assumptions. When I catch myself catastrophizing about winter scenarios, I pause and ask, is this something I can control? Have I prepared reasonably? If yes, and yes, What am I trying to protect myself from right now? Usually, the answer is nothing real, just anxiety. Rule 10 is about building a resilience that comes from acceptance, not from trying to control every variable. The Amish know they can't control winter, so they prepare, accept what comes, and respond when it arrives. This is the final rule, and it's the foundation that makes all the others work. All the items we've covered, cast iron, mason jars, wool blankets, herbal remedies, community networks, they're all tools. But the tool that matters most is your mind. In any extended crisis, the people who survive are rarely the ones with the most stuff. They're the ones who maintain mental clarity, purpose, and hope. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, wrote that prisoners who survived weren't necessarily the strongest or healthiest. They were the ones with a reason to survive, a purpose that pulled them forward. For seniors facing winter 2025, this is critical. Depression and isolation spike in winter. Cold stresses the heart and respiratory system. The temptation to despair is real. But mental resilience, the ability to maintain purpose, hope, and perspective, is what separates people who thrive through a rough winter and people who don't. The Amish approach mental health differently than modern medicine. They don't wait for crisis to build resilience. They live in a way that constantly reinforces it. Amish life is designed to foster contentment, resilience, and life satisfaction through community, manual labor, spiritual practice, and a focus on what they can control while accepting what they cannot. The practical application is building mental resilience before winter intensifies. First, establish purpose beyond yourself. If your only reason to get through winter is yourself, that's fragile. But if you're surviving for grandchildren, for your community, for a mission you believe in, that's powerful. Second, practice small discomforts regularly. Go camping in cold weather. Fast for a day. Sit in a cold room for an hour. These experiences prove to yourself that you can handle difficulty. Third, maintain regular connection with others. Isolation is the enemy of mental resilience. Community is the cure. For seniors specifically, this means staying engaged, staying purposeful, and staying connected. Offer to help younger people with skills you have. Share your knowledge. Keep learning. Maintain hobbies and interests. Have something to look forward to each week, each month. These aren't luxuries, they're survival necessities. Rule 11 is understanding that while your gear might fail, your supplies might run out, and your plans might fall apart, if your mind stays strong, you still have a chance. Your mindset is the single most important item you can stockpile. So let me tie this all together. We've covered 11 rules and over 15 specific items that represent the Amish approach to winter and crisis. But here's what's important. These items don't work in isolation. They work as a system. Cast iron teaches you that self-sufficiency is possible. Mason jars and canning teach you to preserve and plan. Oil lamps teach you that electricity isn't essential. Wool blankets teach you warmth is achievable without complex systems. Hand tools teach you mechanical self-reliance. Root cellars teach you that natural storage works. Herbal remedies teach you health independence. Community networks teach you that isolation is a choice. Patience teaches you that panic is optional. Gelassenheit teaches you that acceptance reduces suffering. And mental resilience teaches you that mindset is everything. The Amish have built a life where the systems support each other. When one fails, others compensate. They're not dependent on any single infrastructure, technology, or system. They're resilient through redundancy and simplicity. This winter, you have a choice. You can continue living as though the grid will always work, the supply chain will always function, and expert help is always available. Or you can adopt some of the Amish principles and build real resilience, not from fear, but from competence. Start this week. Pick one item from what we've covered. Buy cast iron. Start canning. Build a simple storage system. Connect with a neighbor. Start a simple meditation practice. Pick one. Start with one, and then build from there. We covered 11 principles today that represent what the Amish grandparents already know about surviving harsh winters and uncertain times. Rule 1. Build invisibility and self-reliance. Rule 2. Recognize that patience and preparation now matters more than panic later. Rule 3. Secure your water. Rule 4. Understand caloric costs of every action. Rule 5. No fires double edge. Rule 6. Maintain noise discipline and operational security. Rule 7. Always have contingencies. Rule 8. Build community networks. Rule 9. Practice purposeful patience. Rule 10. Develop Gelassenheit and acceptance. And Rule 11. Build mental resilience above all else. These aren't flashy. They won't get clicks on social media, but they're real, tested, and proven across generations. They're what the Amish grandparents are quietly stockpiling, not just items, but principles that make every item matter. If you grab the Winter Wellness Checklist, you've got the shopping lists and action steps. If you haven't yet, the links are still in the description and pinned in the comments. It's free, completely free, and it gives you a structured way to start this week. Hit that like button if this resonated with you. Drop a comment telling me which of these 11 principles surprised you most, or which one you're going to implement first. Subscribe if you want more content that cuts through the hype and teaches you real, practical resilience based on what actually works. Remember, the Amish aren't stressed about winter 2025 because they've already prepared. They've already built the systems. They've already done the work. The question isn't whether you have time to prepare. You do. You have right now. The question is whether you're willing to think differently about what preparation actually means. It's not about technology. It's not about complexity. It's about principles. It's about being ready not from fear, but from competence. It's about living simply so you can live calmly when everything else gets chaotic. This is your time. This is your moment. Start this week. Don't wait for January. Don't wait until the storm arrives. Start now. Your future self and your family will thank you. Stay prepared, stay patient, stay connected, and I'll see you in the next one.